All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a deeply human, honestly just profoundly moving story. We're looking at the life of a young guy from Holman, Wisconsin, who basically found his ultimate purpose the moment he put on a United States military uniform. It's a story about community, sacrifice, and the absolute ripple effect that happens when someone steps up to serve. So we're not just looking at one life here, we're exploring how his story ties into an entire century-long legacy of hometown heroes. Take a look at this quote. I frickin' love being a Marine. I mean, you can just hear the enthusiasm, right? Those are the actual words of 19-year-old Michael McMahon. It really sets the stage because for Michael, this wasn't just some job. It was his identity. He was literally bursting with pride over it.
Section 1. A Life of Promise.
Before the uniform, Michael was just a kid, a really fun-loving, super relatable kid. He was a natural athlete, rocking number 52 on the football field for Onalaska High School, and later number 50 as a linebacker at Concordia University. Off the field, he was just like anyone else his age, grinding on his PS5, scrolling TikTok, obsessing over the Philadelphia Eagles. He practically lived on energy drinks, butter pecan ice cream, and basically nonstop runs to Chipotle and Crumble. His family actually jokes about how he had this hilarious habit of flexing in literally every single mirror he walked past. But beneath all that goofing around, he had this incredibly grounded side too. He was super devoted to his Catholic faith, highly active in his youth group, and completely head over heels for his girlfriend, Gwen.
And that grounded nature really shines through in this piece of advice he gave a friend. Just live life and appreciate the little things. Pretty profound for a 19-year-old, don't you think? It really captures the kind of impact he had. People who knew him said his smile and his upbeat energy were just contagious. He didn't just go through the motions. He lived out loud and dragged everyone else along for the ride.
Section 2. Becoming a Marine. Now, Michael's trajectory shifted incredibly fast. Let's look at the timeline. He graduates high school in 2024, heads off to play college football that fall, but then something clicks. In 2025, he makes this huge, life-altering pivot and enlists in the United States Marine Corps. And he didn't just scrape by either. By January of 2026, he is absolutely crushing it in boot camp, stepping up as a guide and a squad leader. When he found his calling man, he went all in. Which brings us to this awesome, lighthearted story from his family. He was so incredibly proud to be a Marine that when he came home, he was genuinely shocked, like completely baffled, that the local grocery store wouldn't accept his military ID for a discount. He just wanted the whole world to know he was a Marine. It's a small thing, sure, but it perfectly hits the nail on the head regarding how much he valued that title he had earned. Section 3. A tragic mishap. Then, the unthinkable happens. The stark reality hit in an official press release from the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force. On March 9, 2026, right around 1:45 p.m., Michael passed away from injuries he sustained in a tactical vehicle mishap. And this was during what was supposed to be just routine training at Camp Pendleton out in California. It's a gut-wrenching, sobering reminder of how abruptly things can change. A 19-year-old with his whole life ahead of him, just gone. In the wake of something that heavy, his family has really had to lean on the exact same faith that defined Michael. He actually lived his life by the scripture of Psalm 23:4. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Michael prayed daily. He held that verse incredibly close to his heart. And knowing that, it's bringing a really profound sense of comfort to a family and a friend group whose world has just been shattered. Section 4. The Wall of Honor. This brings us to something really special, the Onalaska High School Wall of Honor. They established this back in 2008 as a permanent tribute to alumni who gave their lives serving in the U.S. military. By putting Michael's story in this context, we're zooming out a bit. We're placing him right into a revered, century-long lineage of community sacrifice. He joins this literal brotherhood of hometown heroes who stepped up and gave everything. And when you look at this table, you see that this sense of duty spans literally every major era of modern conflict. We're talking about native sons of Onalaska, like William Himmel, who died in World War I, just weeks before the armistice, if you can believe that. Walter K. Tomac in World War II, Donald Gale Renstrom, who was taken prisoner in the Korean War, and Adam Servais, a special operations combat controller killed in action in Afghanistan. Generation after generation, whenever the call went out, this community answered. The stories of sheer valor behind these names are absolutely staggering. Michael Bruce Turner, awarded the Bronze Star in Vietnam. He was a young guy who firmly believed you fight to protect what means the most to you. Then there's Anthony Markovich Jr., an Army Ranger, also in Vietnam. He was actually in the process of being phased out of combat, but he volunteered for one final mission, and that was the one that took his life. Or Nick Dewhurst, a West Point grad and combat diver, ambushed in Afghanistan in 2008 after, again, volunteering to go on a patrol. The level of courage here is just deeply, deeply woven into the DNA of this town.
Section 5. Echoes of the Past. Now, something absolutely crucial to understand is that military danger isn't just confined to active combat zones. Look at this direct parallel. On one side, in 2026, we have Michael McMahon lost in a tactical vehicle mishap during routine training. On the other side, we jump back decades to 1978. Kenneth D. Van Riper Jr., another Onalaska alum, died when his Gamma Goat tactical vehicle rolled down a hill during training maneuvers at Fort Campbell. Two young men, decades apart, both making the ultimate sacrifice not in a war zone, but while doing the dangerous work of preparing to defend their country.
These inherent risks of training are a constant thread throughout history. I mean, we can trace this all the way back to World War II. Take Floyd H. Briggs, who perished in a U.S. Army Air Force training accident in 1943. It really drives home the point that the peril our service members face is constant. Wartime, peacetime, it doesn't matter. The risk is always there, and the sacrifice is equally profound.
Section 6. An Enduring Legacy.
So how do people respond to this kind of heartbreak? Well, the Onalaska and Holman communities didn't just sit back and grieve. They jumped into action. They've rallied around the McMahon family with prayers, sharing stories, and just offering immense support. But even more than that, they're channeling all this heavy grief into positive momentum. They're pouring donations into the very things that shaped Michael's life. The Lacrosse Lightning Lacrosse Club, the Onalaska High School Football Program, St. Patrick's Youth Group. They're literally investing in the next generation in Michael's name.
I think the community's determination is captured perfectly right here. Taking his light and his legacy and carrying it on so that people still feel like he's here. It really hits home, doesn't it? It shows that even when a life is cut tragically short, that person's impact, their faith, their crazy enthusiasm, their dedication, it doesn't just vanish. It ripples outward. It keeps changing the world for the better.
And that brings us to our final thought. When we look at Michael McMahon and when we look at that long, long list of names on the Wall of Honor, we really have to ask ourselves, how can we best carry forward the light and legacy of those who sacrificed absolutely everything to serve our country? Because whether they fall on a mountain in Afghanistan or during a routine Tuesday training exercise in California, their commitment demands our respect and our reflection. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll leave you to think on that.